Okay, so my article was called Counting on Grandmothers, Black Mothers and Fathers' Reliance on Grandmothers for Parenting Support, and this was done in 1997. So a grandmother's involvement in childcare has to do with the parent's need for help, and there are many reasons for that. Some of the reasons include timing, age, and structure of the family. So um, age has to do with maybe they're a young parent and they need guidance on how to raise their children, or just a new parent. A lot of new parents are nervous about raising their kids, so they go to someone who's already been through that process. Timing of events include maybe a physical or mental disability of the parent, incarceration, addiction, the economic status. Um, so if someone doesn't make a lot of money, they're more likely to depend on a family member to watch their children, because they'll probably do it for free over than paying hundreds of dollars a week on child care. And the structure of the family is, like the closeness, stuff like that. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But those three factors and their examples aren't the only thing. It's not the only case. So according to this article, there's a lot of cultural norms and support networking. So in other words, intergenerational family and extended kin is very important to Black families. The article noted that this is specifically important in rural Southern communities. So previous research concluded that Black families are more likely to depend on family members than they are their actual partner or husband or wife. So that being said, grandma is sort of the root of the family. The saying that it takes a village to raise a family. Well, grandma's definitely a part of that. So people go to her for, advice, guidance, and support. So there was a study done by Sherlin and Furstenberg, and they explored grandparenting styles. And they found that Black grandparents are most likely to use authoritative and influential grandparent styles. And as we learned last week about parenting styles, authoritative is one of the better parenting styles, because there is rules, but there's also some free will in there. There's a lot of love and respect, but there is boundaries, and that is kind of hoping for more independent adults one day. So, in another study done by Collinsworth, Smith, and Gordon, found that Black children see their grandmother to be very influential in their life. Their grandmother is going to teach them about life, religion, things like that. And that was being compared to white children, and white children did not say the same thing about their grandparents. So some more previous research was done on gender differences between females and males depending on their grandmother, and their mother, I should say. So kinship is extremely important to Black females, and a lot of research has been done on that. But there hasn't been a lot of research done on the kinship of the Black male. But all they kind of know based on that is that if the father is absent, that increases the chances of grandma being involved in her grandchildren's life. So going back to what I said earlier about grandmothers being the root of the family, families that are more likely, families that follow that. So if the woman is definitely like the leader and the head of that family, the younger generations are more likely to turn to her regardless of their sex. So going back to the information, previous research on fathers, this little bit of research that we do know involving males states that married men are more likely to go to their wife over their mother, which is grandma, or other family members. And young fathers do credit their mother for teaching them about fatherhood, how to be a good father, and how to raise their children. And that was a study done by Miller. Okay, so now kind of getting into what this study was about. There's a lot of variables in the study, so I'm really going to try my best to explain them well. One of the things got a little confusing, but I'm going to try. So the researcher examined three major areas. Area 1 was demographic and economics. Area 2 was family ties and kinship between the parents and the grandma. And in area 3 was gender differences and how each gender relies on their mother, grandma, in helping raise their children. So this article focuses on all 3 of those, but they really wanted to focus on the 3rd one because there isn't a lot of research done about the gender differences, particularly with males. They have some things on females, but not really males. So each area was assigned a hypothesis. So hypothesis 1 was grandmas will be the primary source of parenting support for both moms and dads. Hypothesis 2 was the parent characteristics, which is age, marital status, number of children, things like that. So parent characteristics and economic status will not predict mother's reliance on grandma for support, but the opposite effect will happen for fathers. And then they also are predicting married men will choose their wife over their mothers because the previous research, all of that has stated that that is the case. So they're just going to go with that. And hypothesis 3 is families with closeness and kinship, especially found in the rural South communities, will rely on all of the grandparents for support because they're very heavily involved with that multi-generational family lineage. So this study was conducted through the National Survey of Black Americans. There are 487 participants ranging from the ages of 18 to 34. So 74% were females and 25% were males, which I found interesting because they really want to find more information about the males. And there's only 25% of them, but you know, it's a survey. You got to take what you can get because it's really hard to get people to do them. So 85% of those 25 males were married. So we kind of already know what the result of that's going to be. And 38% of that 74% of females were married as well. And I kind of wanted to note that the fathers had a higher income than the mothers. And I just want to have you guys keep that in mind because we do know that women are paid less than men. And women of color are paid even less than white women. So when we're talking about economic status, it is important to know that it has something to do with society. And women are more likely to live with extended families. So 1 out of 5 women in this study were living in a household with extended family. So the dependent variable of the study were grandma's parenting supports. So the survey was asking yes or no questions. So for a question that answered yes and that yes involved grandma, they received a point. And if it didn't involve grandma, it didn't get any points, so 0 points there. So for example, one of the questions on the survey was if they relied on somebody for support and help and assistance in raising their children. And if the person answered yes, the researcher would ask, who is that person? And then if they said their mother, which is grandma, they did get a point for that. So the independent variable was parent characteristics, which I talked about before, the SES, marital status, number of children, I went through that, economic status, and community. So again, they received 1 point for grandma's involvement and 0 points if it didn't involve grandma. So the next section of the survey was about the intergenerational families, and this is where a lot of variables come to play. So this included extended family in the same household, surviving generations, neighborhood of extended kin, family proximity, and family closeness. So again, they were asked the questions, the scoring kind of stayed the same, 0 points. If it didn't involve grandma, 1 point if it involved grandma, things like that. So what did they find in this study? So the study concluded that grandmas were ranked the highest out of all help, even including the husband. So grandma was the #1 go-to person. 57% of mothers and 55% of fathers said that grandma was the #1 resource for helping in parenting. Fathers were more likely to depend on grandma for childcare, and mothers were more likely to depend on grandma for assistance and advice. So the mother's results correlated with the closeness, the family lineage, and the family proximity, and that really involved grandmas. Um, so it kind of didn't matter what the women had, the characteristics. Things might have gotten in their way, things like that, but it really had to do with the family connections and the ties. So marital status, number of kids, employment status, income, that kind of didn't really matter when it came to women. But it changed with fathers. So the employment status, so if they weren't employed and if they lived close to their mother, so proximity, did increase the family involvement. But that family connections that I just talked about, living with extended family, stuff like that, it didn't really matter with men than it did with women. So overall, despite the person's sex, the SES, marital status, number of kids, all those parent characteristics, participants did credit their mother for support. The researcher thinks that this might be correlated with the grandma's grandparenting style, as I mentioned before. So that authoritative and influential style makes them very important to the family and very reliable. So my discussion questions. Discussion question number 1. Why do you think family variables, proximity, lineage, living with extended family, did not apply for fathers depending on grandmas, but it did for the mothers? Discussion question number 2. The article described a majority of black grandmas' use of authoritative and influential style. The researchers predicted that this made grandma the root of the family. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? All right, thanks for listening.